Good evening. I'm Nima Rajan, and this is Forum Daily for Friday, August 5th. We start tonight with a look at Canada's unemployment rate, which remained at a historic low of 4.9% in July. This even though the economy shed jobs for the second straight month. Statistics Canada says the economy lost 31,000 jobs last month, on top of a loss of 43,000 in June. But it says Canada's labor market remains exceptionally tight, with over 1 million job vacancies across the country. CIBC senior economist Andrew Grantham notes the job losses in July were concentrated in the services sector. This includes wholesale and retail, education and health sectors, which are reporting high vacancy rates. Mr. Grantham says that indicates labor supply rather than demand appears to be the main issue. All right, well, meanwhile, the federal cabinet is bypassing Parliament and is banning the importation of handguns. Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino says the ban will take effect in 2 weeks. The government tabled gun control legislation in May that includes a freeze on the importation, purchase, sale, and transfer of handguns in Canada. But it hasn't passed yet. The change will last until a permanent freeze is passed in Parliament and comes into force. On the West Coast, British Columbia is expected to experience sustained wildfire activity in August and September. The wildfires are forecast to shift from the province's north to its southern regions. Neil McLaughlin at the BC Wildfire Service said there were 149 new wildfires over the past week, and he also predicts similar fire start numbers through August with continued hot and dry weather. Meanwhile, the service has upgraded an Okanagan district evacuation order for the 42-square-kilometer Kiramias Creek fire south of Penticton. In addition to the more than 300 properties previously evacuated, the order now stretches south to include all homes in Olalla and just south of it. Interest in natural gas on Canada's east coast has a coalition of environmental groups calling on Ottawa to reject any business proposals related to it. The coalition includes the Sierra Club Canada Foundation and Climate Action Network Canada. They want the government to reject any projects to build export facilities for liquefied natural gas in the region. In a statement yesterday, they said such projects would produce climate-wrecking emissions. The statement also takes aim at the financial risks associated with multi-billion-dollar ventures, which could take several years to come on stream. Dormant plans for LNG terminals in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick have experienced renewed interest in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Turning to Alberta, where defense lawyers working with Legal Aid Alberta have voted to stop taking any cases for 2 weeks. They say it is their response to what they call the provincial government underfunding the system. The group includes the Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, the Criminal Trial Lawyers Association, and the Southern Alberta Defense Lawyers Association. They have been pushing the province to increase legal aid's budget in line with other Canadian jurisdictions. Alberta Justice says it has reached out to all three organizations for a meeting. Some good news for travelers in Toronto. Officials say there are now fewer flight delays and shorter wait times at baggage carousels at Pearson Airport. Greater Toronto Airport Authority President and CEO Deborah Flint says 44% of flights were on time last week. This is up from an average of 35% over the 4 previous weeks. A surge in travel this summer and staffing shortages have led to widespread flight cancellations, baggage delays, and long lineups at Pearson. This, at one point, caused up to half of all departures to be delayed. Moving to Quebec now, which is expanding access to the monkeypox vaccine amid signs that the virus has begun to spread outside of Montreal. Public Health Director Luc Boileau says men across the province who report sexual contact with other men other than one exclusive partner will now be eligible for a vaccine. Quebec's overall cases are rising slowly, with 373 as of Tuesday. Ontario makes up most of the rest of Canada's roughly 890 cases. Well, it's a big season for farmers in Saskatchewan. Harvest is underway in some parts of the province. The latest provincial crop report says some farmers in the west central and southwest regions are in their fields where crops are further ahead in development. The report says in eastern regions, the start of harvest is at least 7 to 10 days away. Many pastures have recovered from last year's drought after receiving much more rain than last year, except for some parts in the west. Forum Daily will be right back with a look at more news from across Canada. We'll take a look at unemployment on the East Coast, Manitoba opening COVID-19 vaccine bookings to young children, and the new FIFA rankings for Canada's national women's team. So stay tuned to Forum Daily. We'll be right back after this break. Unemployment rates for July in Atlantic Canada are the highest in the country. Newfoundland and Labrador had the highest jobless rate in Canada at 10.2% last month. This while New Brunswick registered at 7.1%, according to Statistics Canada. Nova Scotia's rate was 5.9%, while unemployment stood at 5.7% in PEI. The national rate stayed at a historic low of 4.9% in July. It remained unchanged from June as the country continues to face a labor shortage. In Ontario, the Economic Development Minister is applauding a proposed U.S. tax credit on electric vehicle purchases to cover North American-made EVs. But Vic Fedeli isn't committing to a similar incentive for drivers in the province. Mr. Fedeli says the proposed U.S. tax credit would clear the way for Ontario to attract more auto part makers. He says the province's focus right now is on production and jobs for auto workers and not consumer rebates. Next door in Manitoba, all children between the ages of 6 months and 4 years old will be eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine today. The province says there are more than 76,000 children in the province in that age group. Before today, the province kept a limited amount of vaccine for children who fit certain criteria. This includes those with specific medical conditions. Parents can make appointments for their kids to get vaccinated at regional sites, public health offices, and at medical clinics. Hospital hallways are about to get a little more spacious in Alberta's capital. Alberta Health Services says it has ended the emergency directive calling for some patients in Edmonton hospitals to be treated in hallways. The order was enacted this week to reduce pressure on emergency departments. This while AHS worked to transfer some patients to other hospitals or care facilities. AHS said the surge in patients came as it was dealing with a long weekend, staffing shortages, and higher COVID-19 admissions. Opposition New Democrats worry what hospitals might look like in the fall. This is when respiratory illnesses are more prevalent. Well, it's been 7 months since Toronto asked the federal government to decriminalize the possession of illegal drugs for personal use in the city. Harm reduction workers say a rise in opioid deaths is underscoring the need for action. Health Canada says it is examining the application. Ottawa was widely criticized for putting a 2.5-gram limit on decriminalized personal drug possession as part of British Columbia's exemption. But unlike BC, Toronto's application does not ask for a specific threshold. Some advocates have argued against any limit on personal possession. On the East Coast, Newfoundland and Labrador forestry officials say their plans to reopen a rural highway have been dashed by ongoing forest fires. The fires near the Bay d'Espoir Highway have been causing road closures for nearly 2 weeks. Officials have asked everyone with a cabin or camper in the area to get out as quickly as they can. 2 water bombers and 3 firefighting officials from Quebec arrived in Gander this week to help crews beat back the flames. Montreal-based Lion Electric says it swung to a profit in its second quarter. This comes as it nearly doubled deliveries of its all-electric medium and heavy-duty urban vehicles. Lion Electric is reporting net earnings of $37.5 million. This compared with a net loss of $178.5 million a year earlier. Revenue increased nearly 77% to $29.5 million as it delivered 105 vehicles in the quarter, which is an increase from 61 delivered a year earlier. All right, turning to the new FIFA Women's World Rankings, where Canada dropped 1 place to number 7. This while newly crowned European champion England jumped 4 places to number 4. The U.S. remained at the top of the rankings. European runner-up Germany climbed to the number 2 spot, while European semi-finalist Sweden fell to number 3. The Canadian women have never gone higher than number 4 in the rankings. Canada first made it to number 4 after winning bronze in the 2016 Rio Olympics. Back on the West Coast, a Kelowna winery has won a major national award. A statement from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food says Cedar Creek's Estate Winery has beaten 250 other Canadian wineries to win the 2022 Wine Align National Wine Awards Winery of the Year. Cedar Creek winemaker Taylor Sheelan says the honor reflects all the business's hard work to maximize the potential of its vineyards. The ministry says 6 other BC wineries ranked in the top 10. This included Spearhead Winery, which came third, also being named Best Performing Small Winery. After the break, we're going to get an update on developments in the crypto world with Catherine Murray, who joins us on Forum Daily's weekly cryptocurrency and digital asset update. And after that, of course, we'll have more news from around the world. We'll take a look at the latest U.S. jobs numbers, a record drought in France, and the latest on a potential prisoner swap with WNBA star Brittney Griner. So stay tuned to Forum Daily. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Up now, we have Forum Daily's weekly cryptocurrency and digital asset update with Catherine Murray. Catherine is the host of The Buck Stops Here, and she joins us now for her take on the latest developments in the digital world. All yours, Catherine.
Thanks, Nima. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly crypto and digital asset update. I'm Catherine Murray. Well, we have seen some stabilization and a bit of a rebound within the cryptocurrencies. The top 10 are up by about 1 to 3% today. Bitcoin, of course, the largest, is relatively unchanged, but it has retaken that $23,000 mark. Now, as we know, we have been experiencing a crypto winter with a number of firms shutting down and claiming bankruptcy, but there is some stabilization, as I've mentioned, and a good example of this is actually Ethereum Classics ETC. Its market cap has gone from $2 billion to $5 billion over the past 30 days. Now, the big story of the week, of course, and that is adding to the stabilization theme, is the announcement that Coinbase, and the ticker there, it trades on the NASDAQ as COIN, is partnering with BlackRock, so partnering with a behemoth. According to the announcement, BlackRock's institutional clients are increasingly looking for ways to gain exposure to digital asset marketplaces and also to be able to manage it in an efficient way. So a couple of details here. Coinbase Prime, which is part of Coinbase, that's their brokerage side of the business. So they're going to be providing trading and custody and reporting capabilities to BlackRock's institutional clients on the Aladdin platform, which is an end-to-end platform in order to be able to manage your positions. And that way they can also manage directly their exposure to Bitcoin. And that's really important from a risk perspective for institutions. The reason to bring this up and why it's important from a bigger picture perspective is because despite the sell-off and the collapse of Terra USD, bankruptcies, you are seeing firms continue to move ahead. Now, away from that, or in addition to that, U.S. hedge fund Brevan Howard has raised $1.5 billion to launch a crypto fund. So in other words, money continues to move into it. That news is according to Blockworks. You're also interestingly seeing a pension fund in Virginia looking to invest in crypto, in the crypto lending market. The CIO there is saying that the yields there are attractive, and particularly since a lot of people have been moving away from that space, again, going back to the crypto winter. Further evidence, of course, that product development is moving along. Binance, which is a crypto exchange, one of the largest, is partnering with MasterCard to offer crypto credit cards to be used in Argentina. It is in beta phase, but again, pretty interesting there in terms of crypto credit cards. I think as well that they might plan to roll that out in other areas within Latin America. Now, as we know, we have seen companies report, the traditional companies report their most recent earnings. We're in the midst of a huge earnings season. Well, Block, which is formerly Square, the ticker there is Square, it was founded by Jack Dorsey, who of course also founded Twitter. They did just report their numbers, a 36-cent loss. Transactions were down by 34% quarter over quarter. Stock down by about 6% or so today. So important to keep our eyes on the earnings picture as well as it relates to digital assets. Also on the new product front, the CME Group, they plan to offer euro-denominated Bitcoin and Ether for the future as a futures product. So in other words, In addition to deciding what cryptocurrency you might want to own, Bitcoin, Ether, what have you, you can also now add into that complex or complexity your choice of currencies as well. So kind of interesting there. Lastly, I think it's important to point out again, as we think about the industry evolving and developing, where's the interest? Are people still interested despite the fact that we've seen a massive sell-off? Well, according to a chart of the day that I watch, Google searches for Bitcoin have maintained their higher levels in 2022, much higher so than the period following the last Bitcoin bull market, which was back in 2017 and 2018. The Google searches fell off a cliff. That is not the case this time. There still is a lot of interest, and we'll see how it develops. Nima, I'll leave it there. Back to you.
Thanks for that, Catherine. As usual, a lot happening in the digital space. Again, that was Forum Daily's weekly crypto and digital asset update with Catherine Murray. For more news on the markets and developments in the world of finance, be sure to tune in to The Buck Stops Here. It airs on Sundays at 9 a.m. Eastern, only on the News Forum Network. All right, in the meantime, stay tuned. Forum Daily will be back with more news from Chinese military activity near Taiwan, Israeli airstrikes in Gaza, to a whale trapped in the Seine River. We'll have these stories and more right after the break, so stay tuned. Japan's prime minister says China's military exercises aimed at Taiwan represent a grave problem that threatens regional peace and security. Relations between Beijing and Washington are cratering. This follows U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to the island that China claims as its own territory. Yesterday, China launched threatening military exercises in 6 zones just off Taiwan's coasts. The Taiwanese Defense Ministry said this morning that China sent military ships and warplanes across the midline of the Taiwan Strait. They crossed what has been an unofficial buffer zone between China and Taiwan. 5 of the missiles fired by China since the military exercises began yesterday landed in Japan's exclusive economic zone. A wave of airstrikes by Israel targeting what it says is a militant group in Gaza has killed a 5-year-old girl, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. An Islamic Jihad commander is among at least 10 people killed and 55 wounded from the attack. Tensions have been high following the arrest of a senior Islamic Jihad member in the occupied West Bank earlier this week. And today's strikes risk igniting yet another war in the territory. The Israeli military also announced a special situation on the home front. It closed down schools and put limits on other activities in communities within 80 kilometers of the border. Moving to the Black Sea, where 3 more ships carrying thousands of tons of corn left Ukrainian ports today. They are bound for Ireland, the United Kingdom, and Turkey. And it's another sign that a negotiated deal to export grain that was stuck in silos since Russia invaded Ukraine nearly 6 months ago is working. The shipments have raised hopes of easing a global food crisis, but experts say much of the grain that Ukraine is trying to export is used for animal feed and not for people to eat. Meanwhile, the Kremlin says it is open to talking about a possible prisoner exchange involving American basketball star Brittany Griner. But it strongly warned Washington against publicizing the issue. A judge convicted the 31-year-old Miss Griner on Thursday of drug possession and smuggling and sentenced her to 9 years in prison. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow is ready to discuss a prisoner swap, but he said that U.S. President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin could only talk about a deal through confidential channels. Taking a look at the U.S. job market now, as American employers added a surprising 528,000 jobs in July. This comes despite soaring inflation and rising anxiety about the possibility of a recession. The U.S. unemployment rate slipped to 3.5%. The labor market's resiliency, especially the low jobless rate, is the biggest reason that most economists don't believe a downturn has started yet. But they increasingly fear that one is on the way. Moving to France now, where Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne has warned that they are facing the most severe drought ever recorded in the country. She also announced the activation of a government crisis unit. Ms. Borne said in a written statement Friday that many areas in France are going through a historic situation. This comes as the country is hit with its third heat wave this summer. The statement highlighted that weather forecasts indicate that the heat could continue for the next 15 days. This could possibly make the situation even more worrying. The government's crisis unit will be in charge of monitoring the situation in the hardest hit areas. It will coordinate measures like bringing in drinking water to some places. In New York State, health officials are urging unvaccinated children and adults to get inoculated against polio. This is due to concerns that there is possible community spread of the virus that can cause paralysis or death. The polio virus has now been found in 7 different wastewater samples in 2 neighboring counties north of New York City. So far, only 1 person has tested positive, an unvaccinated adult who suffered paralysis. But officials worry that this could be the tip of the iceberg of much greater potential spread. Back in France, environmentalists are worried that an endangered beluga whale that has strayed into the Seine River in France is slowly starving. They are hoping to get it to eat a catch of herring, but worry it's too late to save the whale. Rather than trying to coax the whale back down the river toward the sea, Sea Shepherd France is pushing for it to be captured. This so it can then be flown to the Arctic and released. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you could always visit our website, thenewsforum.ca, and make sure to follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also watch all of our commentary, programming, and interviews on the News Forum YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us again today on Forum Daily News, and we'll see you again next time. Take care, Canada. Have a great weekend.